free. Costs you nothing. You won't have to decide what to do, pay or cancel, until at least one of the major sports returns. It's awesome. This is, if you're going to do anything associated with the channel, get involved with VSiN Plus, get the subscription, and trust me, you're going to be an insider. Just go to vsin.com/subscribe to sign up. That's vsin.com/subscribe. This is the Lombardi Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It's time for Lombardi's List. Fancy, as we welcome you back. There he is.
Nice. Well done.
I do like that. Okay, so Lombardi's List, a top 5 running backs, and again, how this applies to the betting market as well. It's not just, hey, who do I like to watch? Let's go ahead and get started. Again, I mentioned a couple of them jump out at me, and I do love number 5. Almost buried, right? A player that, unless you're really, really passionate about Bengals football, you haven't watched, but he's big, he's explosive, he's a dual threat, he's Joe Mixon.
Yeah, he's hard to tackle. I mean, he can impact the game in all 3 phases. Now, they have Giancarlo Bernard there to come in on passing downs. But to me, Mixon is hard to tackle. He runs angry. He's physical. He finishes runs off. And as a defensive coordinator, and I think this is how you have to look at running backs, is what are they going to do when he's in the backfield? And when Mixon's back there, you got to play everything, run or pass. People say, well, why not Derrick Henry in your top 5? Well, because when he's in the game, everybody's playing run. Mixon is a dominating player in terms of the backfield. He finishes runs. He can catch the ball. He can go out and run routes in space. He can do different things. He's versatile, and he can create an offense within his skill position, which is what I love.
Yeah, and let's just go ahead and take a look here. 2019, 278 attempts, so they fed him the ball a little over 1,100, an average of 4.1 per pop. 5 touchdowns. He had 35 receptions and an 8.2 average, so that's pretty darn good. Three touchdown receptions through the air. He's just, like you said, he runs angry. He's a big guy. There were some concerns coming out of college. Those seem to have been quelled, and we're good to go moving forward with a guy that's 23 years old for the Bengals. That's a good backfield now if you add Burrow.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, here's the other thing about him is if anybody ever wants to run behind one of the worst lines in football, line up in Cincinnati. To get 1,100 yards behind that line, now it'll be better next year. They've done some things to improve their line, which certainly help. But to get 1,100 yards and average 4.1 a carry behind that line, pretty good.
Yeah, sometimes you just look at the offensive lines. Speaking of which, Le'Veon Bell in his career is a 4.1 guy. Last year behind the Jets' atrocious offensive line, he rushed for an average of 3.1. That's a bigger picture question as far as, again, Joe Mixon in 2018, a little bit better of an offensive line. It wasn't great in 2018 either, average 4.9. So you're looking at a guy that's creeping towards 5, which is a key number as far as average per pop, as far as running the football. If you give him a decent offensive line, it could be interesting.
Yeah, and I think he'll have a much better line, and he'll run the football against them. I mean, teams that go play the Bengals, the number one thing they've got to do, stop Joe Mixon.
Yep. Number 4 on the list, we knew it when he slipped coming out of college in the draft. If he could stay healthy, he was going to be a difference maker, and he certainly is that. He's Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, for me, it's always about running backs are always about block, catch, run. When it's just run, block, catch, or run, catch, block, you don't get as much out of it. You've got to be able to block, you've got to be able to catch, and then you got to be able to run. And Dalvin Cook, to me, is sensational. He's a game changer. He can change possession. He can change the field. He's got explosiveness. He can make one cut, and all of a sudden it's over with. And in that offense, the outside zone, where he can threaten the outside quadrant of the field and then still be an impactful player within the passing game. Second-round pick, Rick Spielman, nice job there getting this kid. Really a good player. Was a good player at Florida State. I can still remember a run he had against Louisville. When Lamar Jackson played, they tossed him the ball. Next thing you know, he was around the corner. This is a really talented player. I think he's just really starting to come into his own. And as that line in Minnesota gets improved, I think he's going to reach even higher levels.
Yep, 250 rush attempts. And again, somebody corrected me on Friday, which I think is a fair assertion, and that is they were so run heavy. So maybe Stefanski's arms were a little tight because the philosophy comes from Zimmer, obviously. But remember, early in the season specifically, Minnesota ran the ball nonstop, run, run, run. You look at Dalvin Cook and his numbers. He averaged 4.5 a pop last year, which is tremendous. I'm going to go ahead and take a look where the number is as far as his rush yards on the season. As far as a prop, 1160.5, so 1,160.5. And last year, Dalvin Cook ran for 1,135.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing that worries you about the over is Matheson's a good back too. Right. So
Yes.
they've got two backs. They'd like to rotate. And I'd like to see, for me, it's always about the back in the passing game. Can he impact the passing game? Cook can. So some of those swing passes, some of those flats, they're like extended handoffs. He's really getting the ball. They count towards the receiving yards, not towards the rushing yards. Because what's the number one objective for Minnesota? Get Cook in space. Get him out there. Let him have some open territory. Let him make one guy miss. We don't block this guy, but he'll make a miss. I love Cook.
Okay, number 3 on Lombardi's list of the top 5 running backs in the NFL. All he did was go 2,392 as far as yards from scrimmage, the third highest total in league history. He, of course, is Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, once again, I thought when he came out, he was going to have to be a slot receiver. I didn't think he was going to be able to stay and take the pounding and the power of being an inside tackle. Now, he's much better when the spread formation is in play, right? When they're in two backs or he's not tight end and it's a basic formation, this guy's a point guard. He needs the spacing, but what he also is a great receiver. And if you have another back on the field with him where you can utilize his skill set as a receiver, and still utilize his skill set as a runner, that becomes a real problem for defensive coaches because now you play nickel against it, you play base against him. If you're in base, that means some linebackers covering McCaffrey, and that's like having Wes Welker or Danny Amendola in the slot. You're not winning that matchup. So it really gives you a lot of versatility on how you want to play it. The key to sports, the key to football, the key to basketball is to substitute without substituting. Right? So it's multidimensional players who can function in different roles. That's McCaffrey.
Is attrition an issue? Could it become an issue? I mean, my goodness, 287 attempts, 116 receptions. That's you could go to court. That's libel.
I mean, really, they had Reggie Bohannon on the team last year. They're not going to do it this year because I definitely think that they know they can't do that this year. I think they understand that, they're going to try to really bring in players. They got Mike Davis, who they signed late in last year, so they're going to try to spread it out a little bit so they're not just wearing him down. And I think Bohannon, Davis, someone else needs to really come in and help him out because I see this back to me like if they had Leonard Fournette for nothing, if you traded for him and you had him and McCaffrey, Fournette's in the backfield, but then you have McCaffrey on the field. So now you're going to get base with Fournette in the game, right? You're going to get base with him in the game because they know he's going to get the ball. So now you get McCaffrey out there in the slot. Who's covering him?
I think number 2 on I think number 2 on your list will surprise some. He's I think he is so underrated. I think a little slept on because of the season last year. That's Alvin Kamara.
Oh, he's a game changer. To me, he
so
does
good.
Everything for them. He's exactly what I'm talking about. He is you got to defend him in every part of the field, and what Sean does with him is great. He's explosive. He can catch. He makes tough yards. He can run inside. He can run outside. I almost put him as the number 1 back because at times the way he's utilized in their offense, he gives them more than my number 1 back.
850.5 on rush yards as far as a prop. I have to go over that number with Kamara. I think he's explosive. Okay, let's get the last one in here on Lombardi's list, the top 5 running backs, and we're going to Big D. Elliott. How about them Cowboys? How about Ezekiel Elliott?
I mean, look, this guy he can be so much better than what he is right now. If they utilize him in the passing game, if they take advantage of his skill set as a receiver, if they get him out in space and he's not on the Cabo San Lucas workout program that he was on last year, if he comes back from there, and doesn't do that program, I think he could be the best player in the league. He's dynamic. He's got great power, speed, explosiveness. I mean, he can carry a football team. He can make life a lot easier for any quarterback on the field.
He's 10-1 to have the most rush yards in the NFL this season. Over under on his rush yards is 1275.5. Just quickly on a few that didn't make it. Derrick Henry, who's being run into the ground here. How about Saquon Barkley? You left him off the list.
I mean, Saquon Barkley can't pass protect. At some point, if he doesn't pass protect, all this talk about Barkley's this great back, look, he's got great plays, but when he's in the game, every defensive coordinator is yelling blitz, blitz, blitz. Let's just blitz him. Until he proves he can pass protect, he's not even in the conversation. There's no way you would trade Joe Mixon for Saquon Barkley. There's just no way.
No.
There's no way you would trade Alvin Kamara for him. There's no way you trade Christian McCaffrey for him. That's the problem. You picked a guy who's the second pick in the draft, and there's other backs that are better than him. I mean, I left other guys off that Derrick Henry's off the list. Nick Chubb belongs on the list. I almost put him 5. Nick Chubb belongs on the list as well. But those are blue chip players. I mean, right now, Saquon Barkley is not a blue chip player.
Yeah, people compare his skill to Barry Sanders, but you could leave Barry Sanders in. I mean, he wasn't the greatest blocker ever, but he tried. I mean, this Barkley he's a matador. He's not blocking.
Look, I've watched the guy on Twitter the other day. He was squatting like 800 pounds. It looked like he had a semi-truck on his back, right? It's great. It's tremendous. But when he takes that power and utilizes that lower body strength into pass protection, then he's going to be a great player. He has what we call blue traits. He doesn't have blue game.
Great analysis. Lombardi's list. So 5. Let's go. Mixon at 5. Dalvin Cook at 4. Christian McCaffrey 3. Alvin Kamara 2. And then Zeke Elliott 1. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to do a little NBA tomorrow. Michael, have a good day. Stay safe, my friend. I'll see you tomorrow at noon. Okay, noon.